Harvey from Echo here with another tutorial for Bass Gorilla, and in this video we're going to cover 10 Ableton Sampler tips you need to know. So before I get into this, just to let you know, if you want to download this Ableton project file from this video, please click the link in the video description. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get notified when we release new videos. Okay, so let's get into it. So first of all, to start this, we should probably get up a sampler. So let's get up an Ableton Sampler right here. Now, that wasn't one of my first tips. I'll show you one of my first tips. So the first one that I think is really cool to show you is what is called velocity multi-sampling. Now, essentially what multi-sampling is being able to trigger samples in different forms or different functions, such as velocity or key. So the way you do this is you press the zone button here, and what this brings up is this little tab with the keyboard across here. Now, the way that you trigger it to be multi-sampled is you pick multiple samples you want. So, for example, I'm just going to pick a couple basses that I've had in here. So, like, maybe this one. Yeah, that'll do. And that one. Yeah, that'll be fine. So I'll pick those two and just drag them into this square here. Now, when it comes up with these lines across here. And also, if you look up here, we've got key selected. So we want to select vel, which stands for velocity. Now you've got two bars for each one. So if we just select this one, you've got the big red block bar, and then you've got the small whitish creamy bar. Now what that does, if you drag that across, it almost does a fade. Now we don't really want to do that because the fades, we don't want to kind of cross bass samples over and crossfade them into each other. We just want to kind of have it hit straight and hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe take this one up to like here. Then take this one down just about halfway, just before. So I'll show you what that sounds like. So as you can see up here, the lighter I play it, it plays this bottom one. The harder I play it, plays this top one. It's just kind of like a cool way to switch between basses, or if you've got multiple exports of a bass or a certain sound effect that you want to blend between, or just kind of quickly switch. It's quite a fun way of doing it. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is looping with sustain mode. Now, the reason why I found this was I heard like an Emperor bass that really inspired me. So the next tip I'm going to show you is sustain mode looping. So at the bottom here, you've got sustain mode, and basically what that means is while you're pressing the button is how the sound is being sustained. So what's happening there is once I've played the sound, it will keep on playing until I let go. But when I've left the key, or when it gets to the end of the sample, it stops. You've also got this, which basically is a sort of loop mode. Now there's two differences. We've got two different loop modes. We got kind of this one and then this one. I don't really know what you want to call them. What this one essentially does is it goes all the way to the end of this bracket here that I've set, and then essentially it goes back here and starts again and almost like stutters. So it doesn't go back, it kind of just starts again from this end section. So if I just play it. Now, as soon as you set up one of these, it comes up with these like set all the way over here. So what you want to do is kind of find a section that you'd like to be looped. So let's maybe say here or so, and just kind of hear where it is. Over a bit. It's kind of cool. And then what I like to do is just do a bit of a crossfade. That's how you do looping. Now there's this second mode, which basically what it does is it goes back and forth between the two start and end points. This is really cool when you have glide on or portamento, because it means you can kind of increase the speed of this without having to kind of manually make it short. So I'm just going to make it a tiny bit shorter. And then when you go over to pitch, go down to the bottom right hand corner here called glide, and click glide, and then you just turn that up to, let's say, a tiny bit. And then what you can do here is if I play a note, so if I show you what the keys are actually doing. So essentially what I'm doing there is just pressing one key and then kind of layering one on top, and it glides up to it. And you get really cool effects with this looping mechanism in particular. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is filter saturation distortion. So if you've got live, I think plus 9.7 or up to live 10, they've added in this new filter circuit, which from what I gather is essentially different forms of saturation harmonic enhancement, I guess. So I'll show you, I'll just kind of do a basic filter movement. So let's just do like a bandpass or something, just so you can hear exactly what it sounds like. Remember, do a 24 dB. So yeah, it's definitely filtering a bit. It's also taking away quite a lot of the, like the gain and the punch that it had. So what I like to do here is use OCR. So now each different filter has its different types of circuits, but on this one we've got OCR. They're basically just different types of distortion and saturation, from what I can hear. And if you just use the drive on it, it just helps beef up the filter a bit more. So if I just push it up to like say 10 or so, so that in comparison to that is just a bit beefier, and also you can really like push it. There's also down below the shaper. Now what this does is this little arrow decides what you want to go first. So if you want the shaper to be feeding into the filter, then go out to the ADSR envelope, or you can have the filter going into the shaper and then going straight in. Now I usually prefer it like this, because we've already got a distortion, then go into a bit of shape just to beef it up a tiny bit more, and then go into the ADSR. So I would just kind of keep that around there. And that's essentially what I do on filters, just to kind of beef up the sound a bit more if there's some filter movement. And also it adds some cool little harmonics in there, so every time you sweep over these harmonics, kind of sweetens it up, and it can, you know, it can be a bit random here and there, and it just kind of gives that element of surprise sometimes. Okay, so the next tip is a pretty simple one, and it's just filter modulation. There's a couple ways you can do this. The easiest way, obviously, is if you just go to the modulation tab at the top here, press LFO1. You've got just the normal standard things that people like to modulate, and then filter is down here. So if you just bump that up like all the way or so. Now basically what this does is when you got this bumped up all the way, it means that this wants to be going all the way down and all the way up in the frequency range. So let's kind of take it down a bit. That's kind of a good like range of how far it to go, and then you just kind of select the frequency you want. It's quite cool. So yeah, from there, and then you just kind of select how fast you want the LFO to go. That's one way you can do it. You can also set the other LFO, so you've got a bit more control on this one. So for example, if we go to filter frequency, you can also set it to be synced. And also don't forget you've got these, which are really cool. So the next tip is setting default settings for the sampler. Now you can do this with any Ableton effect, but the sampler is particularly useful because, for me at least, I use the sampler a lot for resampling basses, and with a lot of the bass resampling I do very similar things to feed into the kind of process I do to process my basses. So what you can do here essentially is already set the parameters that you want for a bass. So for example, say I know I'm going to be having some glide around about there, maybe a pitch envelope on as well, and also an oscillator, but keep that low so I can kind of modulate it there from there. And I also know maybe that I'll be having a notch filter for around here, and also, you know, boost it a bit with the gain, just kind of beef it up a bit more. And then also have the LFO on the filter. Now say like this is the natural thing that I do on every bass. What you can do from here is if you right click, you can click save as default preset. And it'll come up and say default preset for live already exists. Do you want to revert it? And then you click yes. Now basically what happens here is if I just go into head delete this, if I click it in again, it comes up with the same thing and also on the same view. So for example, if I leave it on this, like for example, I'll show you now. So if I click default preset and then save it on that and then delete that, it will automatically come up with the exact same view that I left off with. So this is really useful if you want to be doing sort of the same thing, keep the consistency over your sampling. Okay, so the next tip I want to show you is actually a tip that I found from Mr. Bill, and it's the quickest way to open up a sampler. Now obviously there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go open sample, or you can add simpler and then right click and simpler to sampler. But the quickest way is if you have, for example, an audio file. So let's just use this bass that I've used in the previous one. Now if you press on the MIDI track, just like a completely fresh MIDI track, and just drag this down to the MIDI track and then right click, it makes it a sampler. So I'll just do that again. So you just drag this down to the MIDI track and this automatically makes it into a simpler. And if you right click simpler to sampler, it makes it into the sampler, and then you can use it. So the next tip I want to show you is pitch envelope, and this idea can get you really cool results, especially in the resampling process. So the way you do this is you press the PM button. Now when it comes up, it comes with the standard kind of ADSR view and the standard envelope controls. Now the thing that creates the pitch envelope is the amount button here. And essentially what this is how many semitones you want it to come down from. So what we're going to be doing is, say if we set it on 12, what that will be doing is it will be playing at 12 semitones above the original pitch. So I press play now. It's very slight, but I'll just boost it up like all the way so you can hear it properly. It's a really cool technique because it means that it gives you a bit more punch in the basses if that's what you want. You can also adjust the attack envelope, so like have it really long, almost like a pitch up. Yeah, and that's quite cool, and also kind of how long I want to sustain it for. The next thing I want to show you is using envelopes on anything. Now the way you go to envelopes is you press the modulation tab on the right here, and then you click aux for auxiliary. Now this comes up with your envelope tab. Now what you can do here is use this envelope like empty shell to use the envelope on any parameter on here. It doesn't have every single parameter in the sampler, which kind of sucks, but it's got a majority of them, and a lot of them you can do some really cool stuff with. So for example, one obvious one that I always like to use is the pitch. So we click pitch M, and then we'll just bump this. Now basically what this is where you want the end of the highest part of the sustain to be. So let's just put it at 100%, and then we'll make the attack really long. So if we just play the sample now. So you can hear it like building up until it gets up there and it kind of scoops back down. So we can make it quite gradual or not so gradual coming up by just, you know, adjusting these so it kind of filters, slopes down. So it's very slow. But yeah, you get the point. So you can do that on pitch, you can do that on anything. So for example, I don't know, let's say LFO rate 1. So let's put the LFO on, and we set it on the filter. Let's put the filter on. So it's eventually getting faster. Yeah, so it's got some really cool effects that you can use on it, and also, for example, on the pitch oscillator, that can have a really cool effect if you just bump the volume up. Okay, so the next thing, well, the penultimate tip to show you is changing the start points and reversing the start points. So this sample, straight away from what I've exported, sounds just like this. Maybe a bit higher. So as you can hear, it's got a really long start because you want that like reverse reverb. But in sampling, you don't really want that, because if you want to be doing like quick playing, it's just going to be sounding like this. Like it's got a really long start. So we want to change the start point. Now the way you can do that is from here, or you can go to sample start. I just like to use the arrow because I'm a visual person. So you can literally just make it start right on the nib of where the bass actually comes in. So before the just after the reverb. And this is really useful just for, you know, quickly sampling. But also another cool thing is the reverse button here, and that essentially just starts it from the opposite end. And also if you change this, yeah, it does the same thing but just in reverse. So the next thing I want to show you is the Hotswap Samples section. So if we just go onto here and then press zone, this is where you've got the different samples. Let's just kind of get rid of this top one and just use this one. So what we might want to do here is if we go just onto, you know, wherever your samples are, and you press this, you can select what you want to swap with. So I just select that. Essentially what it does is it keeps all the same sort of settings you have, but it just changes the sample. And I find that really useful if I want to kind of keep a consistent workflow, and also have, you know, the same sort of harmonics hitting the same way if it's a similar bass, but just kind of change the rhythm of it. So this is really useful if you just, you know, also just want a bit of a change and not have to keep listening to the same bass sample. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get notified when we release new videos. Please also hit the like button and leave a comment below. Thank you very much.